Hey, this is Professor Homa. Welcome to part 2 of Project 2, which was working on our website for the JLC Landscaping Company. And what we did last time was we basically opened up our web page comp and we kind of jotted down all our colors and our sizes in terms of padding, margins, widths, heights. And we even, hopefully we printed that out and we took down notes so we don't have to keep opening up our Photoshop file. And then eventually what we did is we generated 2 images. From all that work we did, we generated 2 images. Because the buttons and some of that other stuff and the background colors we're going to do with CSS. And we're going to do a little bit of that with this project, even though a lot of it will be done for you, but it'll give you an opportunity to learn a little bit about CSS and HTML if you're not familiar with it. Now these are the 2 images that we generated. There's a header image, just called header JPEG, and there's an aside pics image called aside pics.jpg. We're going to put these into our page first, then we're going to use our CSS or kind of massage our CSS to get it to look right. You're not going to learn everything about CSS, but we'll kind of see how a web page is put together. We don't put it together just by chopping up a Photoshop page anymore, even though we used to do that. 10 years ago, we used to chop and slice everything up and put it in a table, but now we do things a little bit differently. And it makes for a nice lightweight page that's very flexible and very easy to make changes, and also easy to make it a little more responsive so that it could change sizes and be able to be viewed in a web page on a computer and on a phone. So we're going to get right to it. We're going to get into a program called Brackets. And Brackets is an HTML editor. It's a free program. Adobe makes it, believe it or not. And it is free, and it's a very nice editor. It has nice color coding. It gives us code hints. It's really nice to use, and they keep updating it, and it keeps getting better and better. And in this program, we're going to edit our HTML, our CSS, which is basically, the CSS is basically instructions which kind of tell everything where to go and what colors to use and what fonts to use. That's where we really make it look like our layout that we did in Photoshop, or as close to it as we can, without having to use large file sizes and pixels and all that. Now, what I did here with this HTML file, and actually let me, this isn't our HTML file, so let me do this first. In Brackets, what you're going to do is you're going to go File, Open Folder. Now you could open individual files, but if you open Folder, it'll actually treat your site folder and it'll have all those files available. Now I'm not on the one I want right now, so let me make sure that I get in the one for this class. And I think I called it Sample. And it's this one that's P2 JLC site. It's the one with images, index, and it also made another little file in there. And this is the folder. We're not going to open up the individual files. We're just going to click on the folder and hit open. And what Brackets will do is it'll kind of manage these files in here. It'll open up each file. You can look at the CSS file, which we'll talk about. I have all these comments in here so you can see what each style does. And we have our HTML file. Now our HTML, you may be familiar with HTML, but it starts off with a doc type declaration. It has HTML tags, and they all have, most of them have kind of partner tags or starting tags and ending tags, so that it basically encompasses everything. So there's a starting point and an ending point. So our HTML is the outermost tag, so you could see that doesn't end till down here. There's a body tag, which actually starts not in the middle. It actually skips a couple tags here. But the body tag here at the end is the one where most of our, here you can see them both highlighted in brackets. This is where all our visual content will be seen in the body tags. And before we do anything, I'm just going to preview it in Brackets. There's a little lightning bolt over here, and I could click on it. And you don't have to use Brackets necessarily, and you don't have to, you could use any text editor. But what we have right now is just kind of our raw HTML. It's basically all default fonts, default layouts. Even our links are in this default kind of bullet list, which is an unordered list, meaning it's not numbered, it has bullets. This welcome is in an H1, so it's just a default header type font, which makes a big bold font basically. You can see there's default spacing. It puts space between each paragraph and each block element, which in H1 is a heading, but it's basically kind of a block element. It's like another paragraph. And then there's 2 paragraphs here. These are those kind of dummy paragraphs, or lorem ipsum that we used. And here's the address, and here's the tagline at the bottom. So all our text is here, so you don't have to type anything. And believe it or not, we're going to turn this text here into be those nice looking buttons that have the round corners and white border and even a drop shadow we can do with CSS. We don't have to use one image to do that. The only images we're going to have are going to be in the header and on the right side. And we can go and do that right now. And I'm going to go back to brackets. And I'm going to edit my index page. And I even have notes in here. Now these are comments. There's two kind of comments. There's comments for your CSS file, which have like an asterisk, have like a slash and an asterisk, and end with a. I'll show them right here rather than talk about it. They kind of, here's a comment right here. It basically is slash asterisk, and then it says something, and then a asterisk slash. That means these comments, they show up in gray. It means they don't really show up on the page. They kind of get ignored, but they're little notes that you could put to yourself, or if you work on a team with other developers, you know, they can give instructions to other people. So, and in HTML, which basically is the language that browsers interpret and display for you, they use comments that start off with a less than sign, an exclamation point, 2 dashes, it's a little more complicated, and then 2 dashes and an arrow. So this is a comment in HTML, the other one is in CSS, and the one in CSS is more common to many programming languages. This is pretty common just to HTML, and that's about it. Okay, so other than the body, I mentioned that the body has, you know, all the information that's visual that we just looked at. We just looked at it here. There's our body section. It even has a blue border around everything that's in the body right now. And that's just the default layouts, even using a default font like Times. But what we're going to do is we're going to go into our HTML. We're going to go back here, and we're going to put our images in. It even says image, header image will go here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit return after this. You can wipe out the comment, but I'm just going to leave it there. And I'm going to start a bracket. And the way an image gets placed in our page is we do something called image source. And it's img space src. And if you start to type that, it comes up with little hints. It knows what you're trying to type. And if I click on it, it actually puts quotes there. And I could go into my images. And I kind of missed it there. I'll back up again. There, if I type an I, images comes up, and if I should just click on it once, and there it's looking for a side pix or header. And we're in our header right now, so I'll click on header, and that's what I want in there. And that's the first thing. That's basically telling the image that's going there, and it basically gives its location and its name. Its location is the folder images. If it wasn't in a folder, if it was in the main directory, it would just say header.jpg. But because it's in a folder called images, it has images slash. That's the directory that it's in. And we're just going to use a space to separate these other attributes. One of them is going to be an alt tag, which is basically just a tag that displays some text in case your image wouldn't load. And it can also help anybody who uses accessibility tools to basically, you know, translate text to speech or any kind of tools like that. So, you know, they would know what's here in the header. So I'm just going to put a little description. You don't need anything really special, just something in there. You could even just put header pic is fine. And it's inside of quotes. And I'm going to hit a space again, and I'm going to put the width and height. And I'll put a quote, and it puts double quotes there. And I'll just put height equals as well, because I know I'm going to have to put the height. So I'll put height equals, and I'll put quotes, and it puts 2. And I'm just going to put the width and height in there. And how would you know what the width and height is? Well, I think I kind of remember, but if you hover over header, it says 840 by 160. That's like, oh yeah. So we'll put 840 in here. And I'll put 160 for the height. And then I need to finish off my tag. So I'm going to hit the greater than bracket and close off my tag. So that's my tag here for my image. And if I want to just check it out, there it is. It's showing up on my page. So my image now in my page, and again, it doesn't look like our layout we did in Photoshop, but it's in my page. So since I did that, who wants to type all that again? I'm just going to highlight this, copy it, and I'll go down for my other image, which is way down here in the aside section. Remember, that's why we did those folders in Photoshop. We have things broken up in sections. So I'm going to paste that image as header, and I'm going to backspace all this header stuff. And I'll put a slash after images, and right up it's looking for an image in that folder. So I'll use a side pix. I'll just change the alt tag to be, I'll just call I'll just call it side pics. I don't have to put a side. I'll just put side pics. And let's see, this, if I hover over it, it's 190 by 380. So the width is 190, the height is 380. And that's done. I already have that tag done. If I go back to check it out in Chrome, there it is. Now it's in order in the HTML page. It's not laid out the way we want it. That's where the CSS is going to have to work. So we're going to use CSS to kind of connect it. But that's the first thing here, is just putting in these two things. And the last thing we'll do here, and then I'll maybe stop this video and then we'll work on some other things. But just again, a couple things just let me point out about the HTML, about these pairs of tags. We have a head tag, and the head tag, that's common in every HTML page. That's where you might see like the character sets. You might see the title. The title basically creates the wording that goes inside either the tab or the top of a window. We can also have JavaScript in there. We're also going to have a link to a CSS file. Instead of putting the CSS all in this page, we're going to just link to a separate file that has all those instructions. Because all these instructions, there's a lot of stuff. And some of these get really long. So what we're going to do is just link to it, and that way we can kind of work separately. We'll kind of isolate the CSS from the structure of the page. So it keeps our HTML cleaner and it keeps our CSS cleaner. And what we're going to do in here, there's our CSS file. It's jlcstyles.css, and all we have to do is just go in here and type it in here. JLC, and it comes right up because it knows that it's there in our folder. And I'll just click on it, and that's all we need. And what that does is it links this page by using the link ref. And it's, again, this is one of those single kind of tags. There's no closing tag for this. It's a single tag where it's referencing, just like an image is referencing an image source, this is referencing a style sheet. And it's saying what type it is. It's a text file, and it's also the style sheet. So we're going to see if it actually works. If it works, let's just go check it out in Chrome. And it's working. And it's working because we could see background colors. There's some generic, these things are starting to look like buttons, and I'll show you how we did that. Now, they're not laid out the way we want yet because this needs to be up here. The colors need to change. That's why you wrote down all your colors, so I could use the beigey colors here and green buttons and make them round corner and all that kind of stuff. You know, beigey color down there. But a lot of this is already done, and a lot of this is already done for you. You know, and that's the whole purpose of this style sheet, is so you can look at some of this and, you know, see why we're putting a margin 0, padding 0, and all that. So we'll continue that in the next movie, but that's what we're going to be working primarily with our CSS, because I think we should be done with our HTML, or at least I'm going to save what I did. So we inserted 2 images and we linked to our style sheet. Now we're going to do our design work in our CSS file.